This is the end of a writing challenge in November, and it's time to reflect on the month that has just passed, but also to be ready for 1 month's time and the start of a new year, which means new writing goals, new points of focus, fresh opportunities to think about the voice that we want to portray on keyboard or with pen and paper, about what it is that for us as writers, you and I, we consider important and worth the time invested in our writing projects. This month I've been writing on a fiction project, something that's relatively new to me because most of my work has traditionally been with non-fiction books, how-to books, self-help books. And so writing fiction is a relatively new departure, but I'm enjoying it. It's been productive. I didn't have the full month that I was expecting in Nanowrimo. There have been 3 days in which I didn't do any writing at all, and 10 days, notice that I can count, 10 days in which I wrote less than 1,500 words on each of those days. So I've ended up just over 30,000 words. But I was working on an existing project. I chose not to bring a new project to the table for the month of November. And instead I said to myself, Nick, what you need to do is finish a novel, not start something fresh, not rehash something that is old and tired. So what I did this month on the days that I was able to productively add to my project was finish incomplete scenes. Write some whole chapters from scratch which had nothing on the page before. I was working to a blank page and really enjoyed that element of the month. But I've got to a point where I'm at 120,000 words on a project that I started late in the summer. And I'm quite proud of it. In fact, I'm very proud of it because I know that sometimes I will write on a project and then move on to something else the following week and then go back. So to have consistent time where each week I added something significant to the story, that feels really good. And like I said, that's been different this November and this NaNoWriMo than in previous ones where I've always written non-fiction. In fact, my very first NaNoWriMo, I wrote this book, 10-Minute Budget. I absolutely adore it. It's one of my favourite books because it's my story of how I recovered from chronic debting behaviour and moved out of debt, and then, being free of the burden of debt, was able to restructure my finances and our household budgets so that we could begin to save effectively and ultimately, in recent years, to invest successfully. So 10-Minute Budget, if it's a topic that appeals to you and managing the cash flow in your household on a regular weekly or monthly basis is a struggle, head over to Amazon, get yourself a copy, and once you've read it, please leave a review. I'm always keen to understand how readers relate to the different books that I've structured, and this one, although it's not my bestseller, it's probably my favourite of my self-help books. The bestseller, if you're interested, is this one up here, Declutter Your Home. That outstrips the sales of all my other books combined. But 10-Minute Budget remains at its heart one of my favourite books because of the personal aspect of writing and completing the book. But that book was born out of this device. It's called an Alpha Smart Neo. I've referenced it in a couple of videos, but only very briefly. I think what I might do is just one video, maybe in the next few weeks, certainly before we reach the end of the year, on how this has helped me. A lot of people talk about a thing which they refer to as distraction-free writing, and the idea that you cannot go online with this device. It's simply a word processor in a rigid, very durable plastic case, and with a screen that only allows you to see 4 or 5 lines of text at a time. It just allows you to empty your mind of the process that you're working on and to capture the words very easily and very quickly. Actually, of the 8 little buttons across here, these are separate Word files, and each one of those can carry up to 10,000 words. So you can get a lot of writing done in a very simple process. I like the fact that it's worth hardly anything. I can take it out to a coffee shop. I've used it to write on public transport, especially on the train, which I love writing on in England. but it's called an Alpha Smart Neo, and you can pick them up for $50 or $60 online. But that was a good previous experience, and it gave rise to 10-minute budget. In the same way that I didn't achieve my intended writing goals for November, and I adapted with changing circumstances. For example, we had gone away, my wife and I, for 3 days for Day of the Dead celebrations down to Oaxaca. And then whilst we were there, somebody within the family said, look, could you help us with some painting and decorating? So I stayed on for an extra 2 weeks and found a balance of my time so that I would go out in the mornings to write away from the hotel for a couple of hours after breakfast, and then return back to the hotel to pick up a paintbrush and just get on with supporting family in what they needed to be done. That worked out really well, and it gave me a regular word count. I didn't manage the almost 1,700 words a day word count traditionally associated with Nanowrimo, and the idea that we put together a very rough first draft document of circa 50,000 words and more. Instead, I ended up with about 30,000 words, but that finished manuscript now sits at 120,000 words. I like it. I like the way I've written the story. I think the villains in it are good, strong characters, if a villain can be a good character. And in exactly the same way that my writing challenge month didn't go to plan, I think it's important to look at the year ahead, which we're only a few weeks away from, to look at that and say to ourselves, the goal remains the same, but the route by which we achieve that writing goal may differ. What are your writing ideas for the upcoming year? I was journaling last night and putting some ideas down on paper about what I'd like to write versus what I think I could manage. For example, I'd love to have 2 new novels published next year, the one that I finished during the summer and the one that I completed, which is the second in the series that I've completed this month of November. But is that realistic? I truly don't know. I look on YouTube sometimes and I see other writers who might have done 80,000 words during Nanowrimo, and they've produced a couple of videos every week. And I wasn't able to do that. It wasn't my plan either. But that just seems like huge hyper productivity, which I noticed that I have some professional jealousy about. And yet I know that realistically, that's not me. That would be too much. Instead, I think that I can achieve next year a new non-fiction book, and to see the start of my police trilogy published and selling online and starting to get good reviews. That would be great for me as a part-time writer. I love to capture ideas. You know, I had a huge script ready for this video, and already I've decided that only some of what I was going to share is relevant, because this is about reflecting on the writing challenge that has just finished and putting ourselves in a place where we can move forward effectively and with a good sense of direction into the next year and the writing processes and the writing projects that you and I will commit to. Ask yourself, what will you complete in the coming year? Why is it likely that that particular process which you've chosen will be successful, and that you can carry it forward and say, okay, this is written, packaged and finished, either for my personal consumption and enjoyment, or, as somebody mentioned in a short that I published this week, I only write for my friends, but one of your videos has allowed me to realize that I need to own and enjoy that sense of being proud of what I write. What are you going to complete in the coming year that you will say, okay, this is me, I've captured an element of the way I think, and I'm proud of that process. Word output is one thing, but finished projects, I realise now with more time as a part-time occasional writer, the finished projects are the ones that matter, because those are the only ones that you get to see on your shelves. They're the ones that you get reviews on and comments on the online platforms where they sell. And it's in the completion that you know you have accomplished what was originally a dream. It became a goal. It became a task, if you're honest. Finishing a book is damn hard work. It became a task that you completed and you're really happy with. That's one of the sorts of goals that you ought to consider for the coming year. What am I going to complete, and how will I feel knowing that that book project has been finished? So wherever you are in the world, whatever your writing project is, be it poetry, screenplays, theatre scripts, short story collections, a novel, self-help and how-to books like I'm accustomed to, put those ideas in your diary. Get the ideas captured. Use your best pen, use your favourite journal. Take time to plan for the year ahead. And wherever you are, happy writing.